Hi friends. If you click to check out the latest from Hourglass, their sculpture collection for holiday 2020, their lighting edit mini, and the lighting edit, then please keep on watching. Hi, I'm Alicia. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you are returning, well, thank you for visiting me again. Kinky Sweat stands for my kinky hair and sweat life. I'm a fitness professional who loves things all movement and beauty. If you want to check out what I do in between the makeup, so you can head over to my Instagram. Shout out to Vicky J because she also uploaded her Hourglass video, but she wore something cute, sequenced and holiday-ish, and I was like, you know what? I need to be a J-Bay and follow suit, okay? So I got like a chain mail top. This is from Cecilia de Boucourt. She designs her own clothes, makes her own clothes. This probably won't be available, but you know, maybe she got something similar now in the works. I don't know. My apologies for the puffiness. I am just so sorry. I actually have all Hourglass complexion products on. So if you want to check out what those are, I will leave them down below so you can see the shades and all that stuff. We're getting right into the palettes, friends. This got in like maybe half an hour ago. And funny story, when the drop happened, I was up very early in the morning because I was told by an Hourglass representative that the palettes were released 12 a.m. Pacific Standard. So I'm like, oh, that's like 3 a.m. my time. Okay, I've done worse. Kept half sleep refreshing for like a good 12 minutes and I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, I don't think it's gonna drop at 3. It has not. Woke up again at 5 and it was available, so I wanted to make my purchase then. I paid for overnight shipping, like a good $30-50, and I thought it was strange that it did not ship yet. It shipped yesterday, Thursday. The drop was on Wednesday, and I was like, wait a minute. So I kindly emailed and called Hourglass. I'm like, hey friends, I woke up really early for this release because I wanted to review it, and it has not even shipped until the next day. And that's why I woke up early so it could ship the same day and I could get it yesterday. I have to say Hourglass was very kind in understanding the circumstances. They had said that their warehouse shipment was late and they were not able to mail out orders until later that day, like afternoon time. And afternoon is way too late for the overnight shipping orders to get to their destination. So I'm like, you know what? It's all good. So they refunded me my overnight shipping costs, which I'm very appreciative for them to do that. And here we go. We finally got our palettes. This is the Ambient Lighting Edit Sculpture palette. It is the classic holiday 6-pan palette that releases every year. In addition to that, they have a quad that I thought it was new shades, but this is the Ambient Lighting Mini Edit Unlocked and is basically a quad smaller curation of their Unlock Edit palette. I think that released, like 2017? This is the original right here, and it has the logo, the non-human rights organization that proceeds from the quad sales will help support. This is probably their most loved palette out of all the ones they released, and they had told me because it has such a strong cult following, they decided to release it in a quad version, and they just picked out 4 shades from that quad. I thought it was new shades. I was like, oh, that's gonna be exciting. But you know what? But maybe the feedback was so much that people really wanted the Unlock Edit shades to come back this year. They actually did it last year with their Ghost palette, and last year was where they premiered their quad format for the first time. So this is from 2019, and these are the blush shades, and last year's palette had the silver mirrored design with the translucent base. Not my most favorite design choice from Hourglass. I much rather it be the same mirrored packaging like you see here in the sculpture palette from lid to base. Last year's palette wasn't well received because it's called the Ghost palette because the shades were barely there. These were the shades and they're very much on the lighter side. So I'm very happy to see that this year's palette has a little more, you know, color value to it. And again, this packaging had the silver mirrored lid with the translucent base. I understood the ghost theme and they wanted to translate that into their packaging, but I think it kind of cheapened the presentation of it a little bit. So I'm happy they went back to the mirror design all around the palette. I'm on the Hourglass website now. I'm only assuming that these palettes are limited edition as typically their holiday palettes are. The Ambient Lighting Edit Sculpture palette retails for $80. If you don't know a lot about Hourglass, they're very expensive. Their powders are baked in Italy, and they use this photoluminescent technology that's very much exclusive to the brand in terms of powders looking like skin and inducing different types of light. So they have their different ambient lighting powders, which is like one of their #1 top selling products in their whole line, in that it creates different types of lighting on the face but with the powder. So it's actually quite extraordinary. Although these pans are very small, they do sell mini sizes in singular compacts, and if you were to get those individually, 6 of them, it'll be vastly more expensive than how the 6 pan costs. So $80 is a lot for one palette, but if you were to get these shades individually in this pan size, it'll be astronomically higher. Here's some details. The anticipated ambient lighting edit returns with 3 best-selling and 3 exclusive new shades of blush, bronzer, highlighter, and finishing powder for a glowing complexion. This limited edition, I just answered my question. Palette of lighting essentials is everything you need to create the perfect light wherever you go. Available this holiday season in a polished gold compact with architectural facets. And you see them here that the angles are etched into the lid. And the gold is my favorite. I think is one of my most favorite color palettes from Hourglass and very much appropriate. I like the whole sculpture theme. You know, we'll see how much these sculpt. Okay. As the description said, we got the 2 powders that are already existing in their ambient lighting line, the dim light and diffusing light. We have a new strobe lighting powder, as well as a new bronzer, blush, and mood exposure is already existing. So let's start with dim light. A neutral peach beige powder that blurs imperfections and highlights a radiant complexion with the perfect balance of warm and cool tones. Diffused light. A soft, warm, pale yellow powder that conceals redness and gives skin clarity with a soft ray of morning light. New shade, glistening strobe light. There's not a shade description for this one, but ooh, that's pretty. It looks to be more on the peachier side. Try that again. Here we go. Natural bronze light. This is a new bronzer powder. Oh, that was definitely better than last year's. Vibrant Flush, a new strobe blush shade. That seems to be more on the coral side. So you have 2 blush formulas within the Hourglass line. You have the ambient lighting blush and the ambient strobe blush. The ambient strobe blush formula has like that strobe powder, which is a little more luminous than the typical ambient lighting powders in their original line that's mixed in with the pigment for the ambient lighting blush, which is what we'll see here for mood exposure. This is like a classic one that I feel everyone loves because it's very plum and low-key in terms of the tone and very easy to apply. Those are the shades from the lighting edit. Now each pan contains 0.04 ounces of product or 1.4 grams of product, and it has a suggested shelf life of 12 months. And like I said before, these powders are made in Italy. Let's go into the lighting edit mini sculpture unlocked. Finishing powder in soft light, and that you could use to buff. Golden bronze light. I'm actually gonna swatch this right next to, ooh, can I? Let's see here. Oh yeah. The one from the Unlocked is a little warmer, whereas the one from the 6 pan design is a little more neutral. So we'll apply one on the other. Mood Flush, which Vicky J said had to be built up on her skin tone. So if you are her skin color, you will have to probably apply maybe 3 layers of the blush, but she had mentioned that it deepens in color and it doesn't look ashy as you build the color. So hopefully you'll be successful in at least using the quad if you're a few shades deeper than me. And lastly, we have Champagne Strobe Light, which I think is a little more golden. That's so pretty. That's just one of the best highlighters ever. Okay, if you wanted to quickly see, I have the other bronzers in the collection. This is Radiant Bronze Light, and this is definitely on the warmer side. See how that pulls a little more orange than the ones found here. Next up, we have Nude Bronze Light, which is definitely more neutral in tone. Just for kicks, let's check out the Ghost Eternal Bronze Light, which I think will be the same or similar to Nude Bronze Light. This has maybe a little more of a neutral tone to it than the Nude Bronze Light. And let's swatch Natural Bronze Light again. Put it next to these. Yeah, this has a little more, I mean, this is a very unique color. It's not warm, but not neutral either. It has like a rosiness to it, I feel. That kind of reminds me of Nude Bronze Light, but a little more warmth. Golden Bronze Light one more time. Next to the one from the 6 pan. Yeah, this one I feel matches up with the Radiant, but the Radiant you see is a lot more like orange. I think this is why people love the one from Unlocked, because I feel it was a little deeper than previous bronzers that they had released, and why I think is a crowd favorite amongst all the bronzer shades that Hourglass has. With all our swatches done, product details out of the way, I think it's time to roll into this demo. And with that said, why don't you come in a little closer? That's enough. I have the Hourglass Vanish stick and liquid on. I combine the stick shade in Sand with the liquid in Honey and Golden. And I forgot how much I really love this formula. The liquid formula, people didn't like it because they felt it looked heavy on the skin, but I think you can't use a whole lot. But it's so funny that this kind of runs a little more yellow on me, I feel. So might not be my most ideal shade match, but it works. We're gonna make it happen. Also in this collection, as I forgot to mention because I'm a terrible reviewer, this collection comes with 2 lippies, 1 refill, and the one that comes in the actual lip component that I have to say, beautifully designed. You might have to stand it up because it's a pointy edge and an angular tip, so you'll have to probably put it on something like one of those silicone holders that hold your brushes upright, or just lay it down flat. But I think they did a beautiful job designing it. I did not pick it up because I'm saving for the Lisa Eldridge drop. So I thought the 2 powders were enough, and at the time I was like $30 for shipping. No way am I getting that lipstick too. So it worked out in the end. Let's just say that. So I already lightly powdered with the Veil Translucent Loose Powder, which I'm actually almost done with. So I'm gonna try to finish this off this year. Use it with my Suku back and forth because I just cannot help with my Suku. I'm gonna use dim light at the end of the demo to buff out the products, but let's use diffuse light. And we got a nice big mirror here, you know. I typically like to, oh no, that was the brush I used in my Kaleidos live and it still had a lot of sparklies in it. So let me use my Wayne brush. I didn't use that brush in the live. So what was I saying? You could use the diffuse light powder to set your concealer, or you could use it as like a buffer after you've applied your favorite loose powder. It's so light in texture that it could be layerable without feeling or looking heavy on the skin, and is virtually undetectable because again it's formulated to just melt and blend with ease, and it's so lightweight, but again the lighting effect is very much impactful. You could use the dim light if you're around my skin tone to buff all over, but I think you can still get away with the diffuse light if you're deeper than me, but you just have to use a very light hand, so I think the lighting effect is quite beautiful. Let me try the new glistening strobe on the cheekbones. Oh, that's very pretty. Very subtle, more subtle than the champagne strobe shade in the Lighting Mini Edit Unlocked. It does have a peachy undertone, and if I wanted more of a highlight effect, then I could just skip over to this now. I could take the champagne shade from the mini and just tap it over the glistening strobe, and both of them just melt so beautifully together. That is lovely. It's time to check out this bronzer. Let's see how this goes. It's very lovely. I really love the color. The color is not too warm, but not too cool neutral either. And if we were to quickly compare with the bronzer shade from the Lighting Mini, this I think, as you see, has more warmth to it. So this is from the Lighting Sculpture, and this is from the Lighting Mini Unlock Sculpture. I love both, but there's something very unique about this tone, whereas the one from the Unlock palette, definitely more of a warming effect. Let's try the new Vibrant Flush shade. Taking again my Sonergy Soft Cheek and just place it here on the apples. So depending on how much color you pick up will determine the coralness of it, but you see that because of the strobe powder that swirled in with the pigment, I feel like I'm getting more strobe and not as much blush. So if you don't like this type of strobe effect, I don't know if you like the 6 panner. The Mood Exposure though, I feel has a little more color to it. So I'm tapping that over everything. So you see the plum coming through a little bit more than that vibrant flush shade. Let's try Mood Flush from the Unlocked. Yeah, Mood Flush has a little more punch. I much prefer this blush simply because it's just the blush shade without the ambient powders mixed in. Although I recognize that's a reason why people love the marbleized blushes so much, because the inclusion of that ambient lighting powder makes it a little more lightweight in application and a little more foolproof. But even with this shade, I still think very lightweight, and you still can be successful even with the heavy hand. Now that At Night blush though, that they came out like what, a month and a half ago, that has punch. That I will be a little more careful with and not as carefree like I am now with these shades. This is the Soft Light Finishing Powder. We could actually use the same brush. Let me give it a little wipey wipe. Tap into that shade and just use to buff all over. Just bring everything together. And now we could use Dim Light from the bigger palette and use that to buff this side. So here's how the skin is looking. You see that strobe powder made a little bit of an impact on my cheeks. Maybe that's something I will put higher on the cheekbones, and I'll keep Mood Flush more on the apples of the cheeks. Here is this side where I think looks a little bit smoother because it doesn't have that strobe blush in the quad. And I think that champagne soft, whatever that finishing powder is called, I think it beautifully melts the products together and just leaves my skin looking radiant without overly textured products. I have to say, and I think we can all agree, that we will love Hourglass to really extend their bronzer range and also their blush range. We saw that it was possible with At Night because their powder technology is undeniably astonishing in terms of just how beautifully it lays on the skin and how it just makes the complexion appear lit from within. And you achieve that every step of the way with their foundation, with their finishing powders, with the setting powder, the translucent veil, the bronzers, the blushes, the highlighter. Now, if you happen to want more highlight, because I do think the champagne shade from the quad gives you a little more than the one from the 6-panner, although definitely has a place for someone who wants more of a subdued highlight. It does have a peachy undertone, and I would think if you're lighter than me, it actually won't look like a highlighter on you. You might have to place it lower on the cheekbone, but if you are deeper than me, I think it would appear more of a highlight because of that undertone. Now, this is their Ambient, let me see here, metallic strobe lighting palette. This is like one of their type of a highlighter. So if you still feel this is not enough from either palette in the Sculpture collection, well, so if you wanted more bliggity bling bling, you could strike it across. You could use one shade, and man oh man, this is really going to make it pop off a little bit more. So notice I've applied 3 different highlights, and even still, and I could spray this a little bit with the, what is this called again? The soft focus. We could do little spritz, but even with layering pre-spray, I feel the textures are extraordinary. And you could do a little tappity tap tap just to melt the powders further into the skin. But that's what you'll encounter using Hourglass powder products, the capability to layer without looking heavy on the skin, and everything works with each other. So you could be really successful in how you combine your different products, not worried about, again, that powdery texture that could occur if you layer on too many powders at once. The fact that I have so many on my face right now and I still feel it looks relatively smooth is extraordinary. Last year's collection did release the trios, these scattered light trios. I know I still have the box. So if you wanted to do a quick eye look, maybe you just stop it here and apply some mascara on the eyes. I actually want to go in with their primer. One of the best products for me 2020, most definitely this primer, and I have a backup. I bought another one during the Sephora welcome back sale. I've just been so overly impressed by its performance. Ooh, oh god, too much. And of course, optimal for Hourglass products. They do have eyeshadow. I actually thought I had one of their eyeshadow palettes. For the life of me though, I could not find it. Very lightweight, and again, appropriate for these shades. If you wanted to stick to the palette for said side of the face, I'll take my Sonuji Detail Pro. Tap into the bronze shade and use that on my crease. And this is a great trick also with whatever bronzer that you have. If you wanted to keep your look relatively low key, the bronzer that you apply on the hollows of your cheeks is the bronzer that you will also apply on your lid. You could take it also all over your lid with your finger if you wanted to cover your lid. If you wanted to try one of the blush shades, you could place it on your lid, and again, that ambient lighting powder is going to come through with a little more radiance. If you wanted to try the Mood Exposure blush, you could tap that maybe somewhere on the outer corner or place that all over the lid. If you happen to have the scattered light eye pots, I think this is super to apply on your bronzer or what have you. This is in the shade Ray. You can just pop that right on everything and it creates such a beautiful scatter effect. I feel this texture is ideal for that makeup wearer who doesn't mind a little bit of that scatter. You can get these to be more opaque, but understand that I already had a powder on top, so it's not going to have the same amount of stick. You want more stick and more opacity, then make sure you apply on the primer right away. Let's try the brown shade from the Unlocked Edit on this crease. You see this has so much more warmth than that side, but I like that color too, for sure. Mood Flush, why not on the outer corner, just to see what that does. I think it adds a really nice hue to the eye. Using the same scattered light shade, but now that we have a little more lid real estate to apply without the powders being in the way, you can see how that was a little more opaque in application. This was a little more scattered. Applying the blush shade from the 6 panner under the eyes here. Blush shade from the Mini Unlocked on this side. Let's curl these babies up. Let's do the Hourglass Unlocked. Many of you had said, and I observed this as well, that I think this is a mascara good for like a one coat and go. Oh god. Whereas the Dark Star I feel is more layer friendly. So I'm gonna stop there, because when I start layering this on itself, it gets too spidery for my liking. I'm gonna wait for that to dry so I could brush it off. Taking the Champagne highlighter shade on both inner corners to get a little highlight up in there. Oh, beautiful. That's a really nice highlight for the inner corner. It's very light and subdued, but gives the right amount of highlight. Going in with Pat's Permagel Liner in Structure with Lisa Eldridge's True Velvet Color Lipstick in Velvet Fawn. And here are both sides of the products. On this side you have the Ambient Lighting palette, and on the other you have the Ambient Lighting Mini Edit Unlocked. I love them both, but ultimately, do you need them? I would say if you collect the Hourglass Holiday palettes, then that is an easy yes for you. I'm not crazy about this strobe lighting blush, again, because it has more strobe than blush. Maybe more appropriate for like a cheek topper type of a highlight. So I think you have to find the right placement for that shade. Although I feel lovely as a cheek topper because it did add that boost of glow on the face, this is more of a truer blush shade, but it doesn't have as much punch as, let's say, At Night or the Mood Flush shade in the Quad. The Quad is $58, so a lot less expensive than the 6 panner, and maybe just perfect for someone who doesn't need all these shades. And I'm happy that Hourglass went with this format. Last year's format, as you will see again, although beautiful, I love the Quad, it was all blushes, right? So a little limiting in terms of your cheek routine, right? If you wanted a bronze, a blush, and a highlight and a finishing powder, you definitely weren't going to get it from the Ghost Quad, right? Because you could combine these shades in a variety of ways to sculpt the cheeks. But if you wanted something more straightforward, more of an edited actual cheek routine where you have your bronzer, your blush, your finishing powder, and highlight all in one quad, I think that's a little more practical. If you need more than that, then yes, you have both finishing powders, more on the light side, more on the peachy side, the strobe for highlighting, bronzer, and 2 blushes. Sure, I could find a reason to use both ambient lighting powders, right? I could use the diffusing powder under my eyes, the dim all over my face, the glistening strobe, the new shade on the cheekbone, bronzer, and blush, but I will find myself having to dip out of this to get more of a highlight. It doesn't have a strong enough highlighting effect for me. Yes, some days I like to be low-key, and when that day comes, I'll use this shade exclusively. But really though, I might be combining, or just if I were to choose, I'll just get this palette because this is a highlighter I can use on its own and it will be successful in delivering that effect. If you don't have a problem skipping on the quad and just getting the 6-panner and you happen to have the metallic strobe light trio, then you could use that in conjunction with the lighting palette. Do one more spritz. If anything, that spray is fabulous. And this is how my skin looks. I think it still looks smooth. I love the radiance that my complexion has. Again, that lit from within glow, all without looking overly shiny or greasy, and all achieved with powders, which again explains the technology behind Hourglass products, why they are extraordinary, and why we also hope that they continue to extend their bronzer range. I think they did a fantastic job with their foundations and their concealers, so it'll be great to see that extension now in their powder products, because again, they are remarkable in terms of their formulation. Do you need both? Absolutely not. I needed to get both because again, I am in a unique position. People want me to review both products so you can see both bronzers in action, both blushes in action, to kind of gauge if you are a similar skin tone to me, which palette will be best for you. In terms of practicality, I would definitely go with the quad if you don't have the original Unlock palette that released a few years back, especially if you want the slightly warmer bronzer and the more pigmented blush and the more highlighty highlight. If you're my shade or lighter and you prefer the more neutral bronzer, then you'll go for the 6-panner. And again, maybe this will show up more of a blush on you if you're lighter than me. Mood Exposure, I think, is a beautiful shade all around. If you're deeper than me, then the bronzer shade from the quad will appear more of a golden wash of color, like a golden highlight. And the bronze shade from the 6-pan will have probably the same effect. It'll be more like a sheen, maybe like a finishing powder if you're a deeper skin tone. But I understand your frustration if there's a product that's being marketed as a bronzer, but you have to change its role to fit your complexion, and you want to try a bronzer from a brand that has these amazing formulas, then yes, Hourglass, we need deeper bronzer shades, because again, we want to see that effect on a deeper complexion in terms of the bronzing category. With all that said, fam, let me know if you're thinking about picking up either palettes from the Sculpture Collection Holiday 2020. If you already have them, what you think of them and how they compare to other Hourglass palettes that you might have in your collection. I'll be more than happy to come on here and do more demos if you would like me to. I could always hop on a live so we could talk about it some more. But until then, fam, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I'll see you on here again with another review tutorial holiday drop, because they're coming. Monthly favorites or nightly life chit chat. Take care, and I will see you again soon.